Bahlaku Komani earlier on about an imminent media briefing by the Gauteng MEC for Education, Panyaza Lesufi. It has started. Let's go there live. We have
satisfied ourselves that the process was thorough, fair, but most importantly, accommodative. We then published the new feeder zones coupled with our new admissions regulations. With admission regulations, the important part is that we even had held public meetings at various areas so that we don't leave it to people making presentations only to us, but we can clarify, because in some instances when you publish these kind of things, you exclude people that wants to ask you questions so that they are sure of that process. So we then published. Immediately after that, when we have gazetted it, we convened a press conference to release this findings and to satisfy ourselves that indeed what we've put in the public domain is acceptable to all South Africans. We then started an internal process. There is a forum that we have with all SGBs where we present. I held the last meeting with them, 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago, we demonstrated the system. We gave them opportunity to comment. By the end of that meeting, everyone was happy that indeed we can then go ahead and release the date for parents to apply for the online registration. We indeed publicized that date, which is the 13th of May, 2019. Last week, when we're in the middle of the election campaign, our inboxes were flooded suddenly with people threatening us with legal action. I hope the team has given you copies of the threats. We received a letter from FEDSAS stating that they've picked up limitations with our feeder zone system. And those limitations, they believe, will harm some parents that may want to apply at certain schools. There is one valid point that they indeed tabled that I shared their frustration, that sometimes the system picks up a school that is outside the feeder zone area that we've legislated, and they are requesting that we review that component. On that basis, the HOD immediately convened a meeting with FEDSAS and the technical team of the department to rectify that component, and that component was rectified. And at the end of that meeting, the team indicated that they were not happy. On other issues that were raised by FEDSAS, unfortunately, they are similar. The only difference is the legal language. We received legal papers from from the lawyers called this Harter Spears. Spears. Claiming to represent an organization that they call it SOS. They've never been part of our meetings. They've never been part of internal processes. We're surprised that there's an organization that claims they've got an interest on education matters, but they've never been part of any processes of the department. We don't know whether they represent SGP. We have not formally connected with them in any form or character. And when we got these letters, there was one thing that they emphasized, that they want us to postpone the online registration that is scheduled to start tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock. And then they tabled series of threats. I said they must make all these documents available to you. They added the following issues on their request. One is the issue of language preference, emphasizing that this process does not protect cultural language and people that wants to be taught through the mother tongue. You know, when people use mother tongue, we know the language, what follows, what actually people are saying, that their language must be superior than other languages. It's only their language that must matter. So they then threatened that if we don't postpone, they will go to the High Court. And subsequent to that, we got a parent that was using the arguments of FEDSAS to interdict us. On that basis, we felt, or more before I go there, we also received a letter from an organization called SABC. It's South Africa Onderwysunie. It's a union of mainly Afrikaans-speaking teachers. They themselves raised issues that, and I'll quote, that there are a number of queries regarding the language of teaching. So you can see from all these letters that people sat under one boardroom and connived one or another to object on similar issues and to hold the country at ransom, and the province in particular, so that we must not go ahead with the online registration. And the reasons are simple. That they feel threatened that we are now opening schools to all our children in their province. They feel threatened that these schools need to be shared by everyone. They feel threatened that their privileges, that they feel they are only entitled to those particular privileges, must not be shared by any other person. That they want to maintain the status quo. The poor must remain where they are and the rich must remain where they are. We must not build a country that is united. We must not build non-racialism. We must not advance the need to ensure that all our children are given equal opportunities in life so that they can access the opportunities that this country can provide to them. But as a department, we felt we must not give room to people that want to destabilize. If they want us to postpone the online registration so that they can engage us fairly, we are willing to do that. We are willing, if they're genuine, because there's nothing to hide. And people knew all along that the online registration is going to go live tomorrow at 8 o'clock. But the mere fact that they've put the threats and the mere fact that they want us to postpone with a week so that they can put their arguments on the table, I advise the HOD that let's accommodate that. Let us not be seen as people who are not willing to negotiate, are not willing to be persuaded, are not willing to accommodate the views of other people. So I want to apologize to many parents that were ready to go to our system tomorrow morning at 8 to register their children, that have now rescheduled this to the 20th of May 2019. And that the entire week will then engage genuinely and honestly with those people that have raised their limitations. As I said, we've already discussed this with FEDSAS. We've advised the HOD to meet with any other person that wants to meet with us. Let's iron out their differences. But I want to put it on record, there's no language that is under threat. There is no single language that is under threat. And there's no one that is going to be denied the right to be taught at with the language that they prefer. Whether Zulu, Xhosa, Afrikaans, English, whatever language that parents feel that their children. But there will be no school that will close out other children because they feel that their language is important and they must study at that school alone with that language. If the facilities are fully utilized, there's no problem. But if the facilities are not fully utilized, we'll bring other children that wants to be taught with other language. If people believe South Africa does not belong to all of us, it's unfortunate. This country belongs to all of us, and there's no one who's going to stop non-racialism in this country. There's no one that's going to deny our children their right to choose the school they want. If there is a person that wants to choose a good school for their children, they must not be criminalized and be forced to forge documents, forge addresses, and come with fake documents because they want to. We are opening these schools to all our children. And this, it's non-stoppable. There's no one that will stop this. They can do whatever they want to do. We really believe that the constitution of the country guarantees non-racialism. We really believe that the constitution of this country guarantees language preferences. We also believe social cohesion is a very important aspect. So we will meet with the stakeholders. We'll deal with whatever that they feel that we need to attend. And we are apologizing to parents that instead of starting with this process tomorrow morning, we'll then reschedule this process to the 20th of May, starting at 8 o'clock. So we've acceded to their request to postpone. And we're doing so to avoid conflict. We are also doing so to ensure that by the time we open this process, no one must feel that they are marginalized, no one must feel that their plea fell on deaf ears, and no one must feel that the genuine concerns that they have were not taken into consideration. But we are going ahead to open the system tomorrow at 8 o'clock. We are opening what you call a tutorial step-by-step guide to parents so that they familiarize themselves. We are not going to register, but if you want to know the feeder zone, you will access that. If you want a look and feel of the system, you'll still access that. And if you need a video that explains to you how the system functions, you'll still access that. The only part is that it's not going to allow you to register your child. So parents can go and access the system at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning so that they familiarize themselves with the system. But also the department will use various communication platforms to clarify this postponement and this delay so that parents understand that it was beyond our control. We just wanted to ensure that the country is at peace and we attend to concerns that are raised by our stakeholders. So once more, we sincerely apologize to the public for the inconvenience this may cause and guarantee them that come the 20th of May, we'll indeed open the system for online registration so that our children can be registered. Thank you so much. I want to leave it here.
Can I add something?
Yeah, the HOD will add something quickly. HOD?
Thank you very much, MEC. Just to further confirm that the step-by-step guide that we will be putting as a tutorial on this system, we wanting to clarify to parents that they must understand that this process is a 3-step process. And when we talk about a 3-step process, it suggests the following. Firstly, when the system goes live on the 20th, what the first part to the 3-step process is that parents will be applying and ensuring that they get their details on the system. Then will come the second period or process in respect of the 3-step process that will happen after July. And that would be the placement process. So we will, on the strength of information that parents would have submitted, that which we would have captured on the system, we get to the second stage, which is a placement process. But placement process will also be determined by whether parents have also submitted all the required documentation as required, as would have been indicated on the system. And lastly, once parents have met the application requirements, the placement requirements, then they will be admitted into a school. So our step-by-step tutorial also seeks to ensure that it clarifies that 3-step process. I thought, MEC, I just wanted to give that indication.
Okay.
Thank you.
We are circulating the objection letters to you so that you can familiarize yourself with those documents as well. And I'll ask Steve to lead with your question and answer session. Steve.
Thank you very much. We by now know the drill. You raise your hand, we identify, and we go in that order. You'll be okay. Okay, let the mothers say 1, 2, 3 must happen, and then you'll be the fourth one. Do you want to come? Okay, in that order.
Organizations and parents that have agreements, what will be the step to take?
Okay. Second.
I'm Sonia from EMCA. I just want some clarification about what are the main issues that they want addressed, and were these not part of what was discussed, or don't they make up the issues that would be finalized in the feeder zone? For example, the language issue. Would that not be determined by the feeder zone specifically, or was that not discussed during that time? And then just some of the issues that I've seen were raised was the one that parents do not have a say or can't pick their first choice of school. Is that correct or is that incorrect? And if you do want to pick a school, does it need to be within the feeder zone around your house, or a 30 kilometer radius around your house? Just some clarification on that.
I just wanted to find out, last year and the year before that, you had opened the system in April. So you're about a month already behind with the system. We know that even by January, you had issues trying to fill up or give people spaces. Is this not a problem in terms of time? I mean, time is running out. We are expecting a change of administration. Isn't this not throwing, are you not concerned that this is people throwing a spanner in the works? And secondly, while you sound very diplomatic about this, is this an Afrikaanse thing? Are you feeling that you are under attack from your Afriforums and your Suid Afrikaanse Onderwysunie, meaning those people? Are you not feeling like this is more about Afrikaans learners not accessing the system? Thank you.
Number 4.
Good morning, MEC. Gerard Torres from ENCA. Just on the practical point, what you mentioned, that nobody will be excluded because of language. Say you have a traditional English school, and of course I'm speaking learner once. Will there actually be a person that can actually teach them in that? Because resources are scarce. On a practical, is that actually can that be done?
Okay. Okay. Okay, Missy?
Okay. Let me start with Gerrit. I think it will clarify other issues. I'll give you a practical example of a school in Pretoria, or Tshwane, it depends which language one wants to use. It was an Afrikaans-only school, high school. All the primary schools had Afrikaans and English. But when children qualify, they have to go to high school. And the only high school was an Afrikaans-speaking high school. So we are putting the careers of all these students at risk because they have nowhere to go. So we had to go to that Afrikaans-speaking school and say, you've got facilities. It's not that the school is fully utilized. You've got classrooms that you are not utilizing. Can't we convert those classrooms to an English-speaking classroom? And they put the demands. Give us textbooks. Give us teachers. Give us facilities that will. And we met all those things. There were extra teachers. There were books that were delivered. And as I'm speaking to you now, that school is a dual language. What it means that we've protected the language that was there. We've introduced a new language. We are fully utilizing the facilities. Because of that, other schools, when the facilities become open, instead of keeping them as a classroom, they convert that as a cafeteria, as a dance class, so that you must not bring other learners in that particular school. So our introduction of any language is indeed influenced by available resources is indeed influenced by the need in that area. Remember, majority of our schools adopted their language policies in 1912, 1920, or during the years of dromedaries. They were not aware that the population will change. There will be new townhouses. There will be new development. There will be new office parks. There will be new offices for government. So with that development, the language policy is lagging behind. And that is why the introduction of this new admissions policy, you have now removed the right to choose to the HOD rather than, not to the final decision making. SGB still make input. The final decision lies with the HOD. So if we have changing demographics, but the language of certain schools is not changing, we are caught in that battle. Maybe to summarize what Mahlaku want to know. We are caught in that battle that the demographics have changed, but there is rigidness of the language policies of certain schools. And now that we have used the law, not the power, because we have been persuading, and people were ignoring us. Now that we have used the power that we have of legislation, we have now legislated this change. That is why now we are faced with this thing, where people believe that the language policy must be protected. So that's I thought it clarifies Gerald's concern, that we are willing as the department to put resources. And you can't force a school to change a language when you can't put resources. It will really deny those children the right to access quality education if they don't have a teacher, they don't have a person that we have. But you can't have a school, and that's very, very important. You can't have a school where a black person is a gardener and a tea maker. It does not work that way. And if people believe they can protect their schools purely because they want to confine black people in being tea girls or garden boys, they must know we'll defeat that and will not tolerate that. All these schools belong to all our children. Any other person that has any other view to exclude people on the basis of language, on the basis of religion, and on the basis of race, they must know we are giving them an opportunity to negotiate with us. We are giving them an opportunity to engage with us. But if people are going to put their language above the interest of our children, it will be unfortunate, and we'll deal with that aspect when we arrive at it.
We're going to come out of that media briefing, but there you have it. The Gauteng Basic Education online application process will go online on the 20th of May. After all, that's a story that we'll be following for you. But